and share my screen. All right, is everybody able to see my screen? Rick, can you see that? Great. Okay. So first starting with the definition of obstruction for Federation baseball. So I won't read these to you. They come straight out of the rule book. What I want to highlight here for the purposes of Federation and its difference from what we'll talk about with OBR is the concept here that's highlighted of hindering a runner or changing the pattern of play. You'll note that that language will be different than what we'll see for OBR, and that will be important. So some things to note here, obstruction doesn't have to be intentional. It can be unintentional. It can be physical or verbal. So we don't have to have contact to have obstruction. It can also be verbal, a confusion. That can be obstruction. The Federation rule also covers obstruction by the catcher. In other rule codes, this would be called catcher's interference. And I'm not going to cover catcher's obstruction tonight. We're going to cover that with interference next week because it makes more sense to do that with backswing interference, catcher's interference, and follow through interference, kind of looping all of those together and talking about them. So we'll exclude that portion of the obstruction rule for tonight for Federation. And then the idea here is that obstruction, we're trying to nullify the act, but in Federation, we always have a delayed dead ball, which again will be different from what we talk about with OBR, and we have to give a minimum of one base. So unlike, again, what we'll see in OBR, we don't have an opportunity to say, like, that's where the runner would have ended up, that's where we're going to leave them. We have to give one base from when the obstruction occurred. By rule, a fake tag is considered obstruction. We'll have a case play that covers that. And you'll note here in Article 3 under Rule 222.1, the fielder without possession of the ball denies access to the base the runner's attempting to achieve. That means possession, not like he's almost in possession, he's imminently going to be in possession, has to have possession. This is very black and white. If he has the ball, he can block the base, he can lay down, do whatever he wants. If he doesn't have the ball, cannot block the base. I think we have a question. Go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, I've always wondered about this rule because it's very often, especially in all levels of younger ball, that they will just try to simulate the tag because the pros do it. And they do it at a time where the ball is nowhere near the base that they're faking a tag on. And this also happens when the fielder without possession of the ball denies access. That happens a lot, and and a lot of it is by accident. And the same situation, the ball is nowhere near the base that this is occurring at. How should we handle that? And is that an obstruction base award?
So it is obstruction. It usually happens. So the good thing here is that it usually happens before the base, right? Usually not doing a fake tag. So if a runner's stealing second, for example, um, and that ball gets into the outfield, that fake tag generally happens as that runner's approaching second base and not once they've hit second base or gone beyond. So the mandatory award is second base. So you're going to call the obstruction. It's a delayed dead ball at the end of play, it was time that was obstruction, stay here at second base. Um, that's really it there. If you had a fake tag because somebody was diving back into a base, you'd award the next one. That would, that's a case where it would be punitive.
Okay.
Well, Phil, though, to my question would be to Wes's point, um, the play there at second, throw say goes through, goes sails into the outfield right on the catcher's throw, and then you get the fake tag, and then he deked him, but that runner popped up and he was just going to take off and go to third, but then he faked him out and he went back to second. Can you award third on that?
You can, that's a
That's what
little
I
bit
thought.
that can be a little bit aggressive. If you've got to think he was going to get third base, right?
Exactly.
But then you can do that.
Clearly.
That's the part here about being, nullifying the act of obstruction. So at the end of the first, without the fake tag, you're going to have the authority to determine which base or bases are awarded um, to undo the rule that was violated. So yes, you could award third base. You're probably most likely just going to leave him at second.
Yep. Thanks.
Hey, Phil,
Yeah.
Article 3, interpret access to the base for me? In your opinion, what do they mean by access to the base?
Yeah, so the fielder, it has the onus to not be in the way. So when the runner slides into the base, if they contact the fielder and are kept from achieving the base by somebody who doesn't have the ball, that's what we're talking about. And if they change their route because they don't have access to the base for a play that's not a slide play at the plate, that's what we're talking about. So I really try not to think of it as like he's got access to a sliver of the plate and therefore it's fine. Like if he's actually blocking the plate and there's contact and somebody slides into him and can't get to the plate as a result, he has been denied access.
And so, are you saying that because this is where the rules are confusing, because there are some casebook plays that talk about he only has to give him part of the base or the plate, and yet it's been interpreted that he has to give him the entire base or plate access to.
Yeah, I think that the idea, Terry, is when the obstruction happens. So when he is obstructed, for example, somebody sliding into the plate, the catcher who doesn't have the ball, if he's blocking the part of the plate that the runner is trying to get to, then he has denied him access. And that's the language, right? Not that he blocked the plate, but he is denied access to the base. And so it's then in your judgment to determine what that meant in that situation. So it's not enough that he just gives him a sliver.
But you see what I mean? That
Oh,
confuses umpires
100%. Yeah, 100%.
because there are coaches that teach their runners to always slide to a corner of a base. So the problem is, did they slide to the corner of the base because they were coached to do it, or were they obstructed and that's why they did it?
Yep.
Can I say something, Phil?
Have at it, Rick.
So I think what's important here, Terry, is that let's just a scenario is like Phil said, it's obstruction when it becomes obstruction. So if he's going back to the base and he's obstructed to the base, and the kid was going to the backside of the base, and the first baseman happened to be on the backside of the base, and his foot was blocking the bag, you're going to have obstruction. In that same exact play, if the kid's trying to go to the front of the bag, and the first baseman is on the backside of the bag, chances are if the runner's going to be safe, and if he's not, there's no obstruction because he's going to the front side, so there really was no obstruction. So you can't have obstruction until the fielder actually obstructs him. Just because he's in a position that might not be the best position to be in doesn't automatically make him obstruct, but it also doesn't exclude the possibility of being obstructed. Does that make sense?
Well, the problem is, and it makes sense, but the problem is the casebook plays indicate obstruction way before the runner actually does anything. And that's what gets umpires confused, because sometimes they hear that, well, if 10% of the base is open, then it's not obstruction. And other people say, well, no, the entire base should be wide open so the runner has any option he wants. And it's not our fault. It's they keep tweaking the obstruction rule and they're not making it better. They're making it more confusing.
No, I don't disagree with you. It's and that's why it's a judgment call, and it's just something that we just have to umpire sometimes. But I think to our conversations from yesterday and having good timing and processing things, my recommendation would be to you, if you're processing and using proper use of eyes, and you see the runner as safe, even though there was a potential for obstruction, just call him safe. Don't go there with the obstruction. He didn't obstruct him if he's still safe. You might want to have a proactive conversation with that fielder when you get an opportunity to say, hey, listen, that could have been what you did could have caused obstruction. So be careful. Don't do that next time. Something along those lines. But I've always thought of it as if there was really no obstruction. If the act that the fielder was doing did not keep the runner from attaining the bag, then it can't possibly be obstruction.
And this is only if he doesn't have the ball. If he has the ball,
All
Do
bets are
whatever
off.
he wants. Block
he can do whatever he
away.
wants. So the second baseman covering the bag who drops his knee down catches the ball before the runner gets there, and the runner slides into his leg, he's out.
He has possession, yes. The same as the first baseman on the pickoff, right? They can, once they've caught it, they can drop the leg, absolutely. But if they do it before and deny access, they have to have possession. Not that it's imminent, not that it's close, not that they're
Right.
making a play on the ball, has to have possession.
Looking at it from the standpoint of the runner, like what I would want to do if I was a runner, if the ball was already there that far ahead of me, I want to make a hard slide right at that glove and try to kick it out. So that's all I can hope for at that point. And otherwise, that's my path.
As an umpire, I just wanted to give himself up. Have a nice day.
Yep. Yep.
Cappy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, quite a while. Quick scenario. No men on. First batter comes up. Little pop fly between first and home plate. The pitcher comes over to catch it. They collide. The runner has his head down towards the base. Didn't see the pitcher coming into him. What is the call?
Cappy, if you will bear with me, I almost promise we'll get to a video that covers that.
Thank you.
All right. So hold on to that thought for a minute. Jumping to the definition of obstruction and the enforcement in OBR and how it's different. Here, we don't always have to have a delayed dead ball. We have two types of obstruction. Again, they both involve a fielder who doesn't have the ball or is not in the act of fielding it. And now we have the word here impedes. So you can see the word impedes here versus previously we had hinders or changes the pattern of play. And these actually are different from an interpretation perspective, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But we've got two types of obstruction in OBR. We have type A, where there's a play being made on the obstructed runner, or the obstruction happens before first base. And Cappy, this will get to the situation that you described in a moment when we see some videos. And in this case, we have an immediate dead ball. And we have to award at least one base. We can award more, but we have to award at least one base in type A. This is different than type B, where there's no play being made on the obstructed runner. So this is the classic runner rounds first base. First baseman is just standing there watching the action, and the batter runner runs into him. That's type B obstruction. There's no play being made, nothing's imminent. And in those cases, we let the play run. And then when the play is over, we call time and we enforce any penalties that will nullify the obstruction. So in that case, if you thought that batter runner had a double and stayed at first because of that obstruction, you give him second base. If you don't think they were going to get second base, you keep them at first. Any questions about the differences here between NFHS and OBR? All right. So if you take away a few guiding principles for Federation, it's very black and white. If the fielder has the ball, they can block the base path. If they don't have the ball, they can't block the base path. They can't block access to they can't deny access. In our Federation, unlike some other codes, there's no act of receiving the throw. Again, very black and white. Don't have to worry about whether, how far the ball is away. It's got to be in the hand or glove, firm and secure possession. If they're bobbling it, that means they don't have possession. Have to have possession, right? And in Federation, obstruction is always a delayed dead ball, mandatory award of at least one base, unless you ignore it. So now I want to talk about the mandatory piece and why you might, quote unquote, ignore obstruction in Federation. So I'll give you a scenario here where you have a runner on second base with one out. Ground ball hit to the second baseman. The second baseman does what we've been doing in baseball for 100 years, picks it up, flips to first, gets the out, the runner from second moves up to third. Life is good. Runner rounds third base, makes contact with the third baseman after he rounds third, and then comes back to third base. Do we have obstruction? According to the OBR definition, we have obstruction. We have type B obstruction. Type B obstruction in this case would be a delayed dead ball. There was no play being made on R2, who's now advanced to third base. And our penalty at the end would be stay at third, because there's no way he was going to score. In Federation, if we enforce that same obstruction because he was impeded, if we use the OBR definition, then we have to give him home. Who thinks we're going to get an argument if we try to award him home? Who thinks that's in the spirit of the game if we award him home? No way. Not even close, right? Like, there's no way in the world he was going to score. Okay. So that's to me where we use the difference in language between impedes in OBR and hinders in Federation, because he was not hindered from scoring, right? Was there contact? Was he impeded? Sure. Did it hinder his ability to advance? It did not. Okay. And to me, that's the difference. Now, if you call that obstruction, then the offensive manager will come out and say, you have to give him home. And he's right. So in this case, don't call those obstruction in Federation. Are you going to call them in OBR in your Legion game? Yes, you should be calling those. But in Federation, I would say, quote unquote, ignore it, or follow the interpretation that that type of type B obstruction in Federation baseball, where there's no harm, no foul, ignore it. And that is in the spirit of the rules. And it also follows the letter of the law from an interpretation perspective, according to Federation obstruction. That may be a little different than what some folks have heard before, and how you may have, yourself interpreted the obstruction rule and having to award a base. So if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, Phil, if offensive manager comes back and asks, why didn't I award home there? Clearly the third baseman bumped into my runner. Would you say something like, use the rulebook language, he didn't hinder that runner or change the pattern of play?
100%. And that's why I think that you're exactly on the right track there, Jeff. The rule book language is perfect.
He was going to go back to third anyways, right?
Yeah, I would stop at your first statement. He was not hindered, and it didn't change the pattern of play. And we're done.
Right. So the coach is going to come back and say, what do you mean he wasn't hindered? He bumped into him.
Yeah.
Where do you go from, there? That's why I said the second part.
Yeah. But Jeff, at that point when the coach says he bumped into him, say, yeah, I saw that too.
Right. But it didn't hinder him or change the pattern of play. Right. He was going back to third. Right. That's the pattern of play that in my judgment was happening.
Right. And that's the definition of obstruction. And so by rule, we did not have obstruction. Was there contact? Sure. Does that mean it's obstruction? No.
Thank you.
Yep.
So Phil, question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what about the back to first one? Because that's the one that, the guy's definitely diving back to first and he gets blocked. But we give him second.
So now we have a play being made, right? This isn't no harm, no foul. He was denied access to the base. That is clearly hindered, right? He was hindered in being able to return to first base. That's obstruction. And then by rule, we have to give him a base. It's not about fairness and putting him back on first. By rule, we have to give him a base.
It's being played on, basically, is the difference, because there was a play.
Yes.
And to touch on what
because he was actually because he was hindered, right? Because he was hindered, and it did change the pattern of play, right? Because if he's not obstructed, then perhaps he's able to get back in. So that is the difference, right? There's a play being made on that runner. That's the difference.
And the award is there because of, again, like Phil always has talked about, that we always need to remember the spirit and intent of a rule, right? So if there was no penalty in that scenario, what would keep the first baseman from doing that every time and to be able to flip a coin whether or not you're gonna you're going to give him second base or not. Maybe you won't. Maybe you won't see it as obstruction. Now we got an out. So you never want them to gain from that. The spirit and intent of the rule has to be a penalty. Otherwise, there's no penalty for it. It just doesn't make sense not to have one.
Question on that previous example about being bumped after going around the third base bag. Are we assuming that the ball is in the infield somewhere where a fielder would make that play at a home plate obvious, and that's why we're not calling it obstruction?
It's because there was no play being made on him and it had no effect on anything, right? So I would force that the same way in Federation baseball, where the runner from first, my initial scenario where the batter runner rounds first base and bumps into the first baseman and wasn't going to get second. In OBR, I call that obstruction, I name it, and at the end of the play, I say, stay at first base. In Federation, I don't call that obstruction because he wasn't hindered. So I basically use type B obstruction and apply it to Federation so that I don't make a mockery of the game. Great
Now, if
question.
the throw at a base carries the fielder into the runner, the fielder's not attempting to impede or hinder him. It's just he's making a play on the ball.
So remember, Chris, it doesn't have to be intentional.
Right.
He has to have possession. So if the first baseman goes to field an errant throw and stretches toward home, and without the ball gets in the way of the batter runner, that's obstruction.
Okay.
If the catcher sets up in front of the plate, in no way blocking the plate, and the throw takes him into the baseline, and before he catches it, he denies access of the runner to the plate, that's obstruction. There is no, in the act of receiving the throw, provision, or like MLB may have, interpretation, you're going to get the ball, you're okay. In Federation, if you don't have the ball, it's obstruction.
And if they get there at the same time,
good luck. If they get there at the same time, Chris, it's probably already obstruction because the runner has started to, slow down or change their path or something. So you probably have obstruction there if they get it there at the same time.
okay. All right.
Bill, can you check the waiting room?
Got it. Thank you.
Hey, Phil. Mechanics, nobody on. You're coming out of A and you're slashing. You got a ball hit the left fielder in the gap. I'm looking over my left shoulder for a touch. Is the plate umpire looking for contact there with the runner?
As the base umpire, I want to try to get that. And so my look back is not just to look at the touch of first base, but it's that whole interaction, right? Okay. So as I look back, where is the first baseman playing? If they've kind of vacated that area, then I know I'm not going to have obstruction. Right. If they're precariously near the base, then I'm going to stay chest to ball, but I'm going to keep taking a peek back and saying do I have anything? Now, as the plate umpire, if you don't have other responsibilities in this situation that take you down a line or something for fair foul coverage, then certainly having a second set of eyes looking at first base, like when your runners are singular, for example, never a bad idea.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal.
Okay, great. So moving on to the first case play. These were supposed to pop up the rulings, but here they are. So runner attempts to steal second base. Catcher, upon receiving the pitch, throws a pop-up to the shortstop. Third baseman yells, get back, get back. And the runner thinks that the batter's hit a pop-up and starts back to first base where they get tagged out. We have no contact here, right? But was the runner hindered? And did this change the status of the play? Absolutely. So this is a case of verbal obstruction, right? Not allowed to do this, okay? Verbal obstruction, R1 gets second base. We're not killing it immediately. We're going to let this play through, and then when it's over, we call time and we award bases. And that's going to be how we do obstruction always in Federation baseball. Play finishes, we call time, we award bases if necessary. Play 2. Runner steals second on the pitch. Catcher doesn't throw to second. Shortstop fakes a tag on the runner, causes R1 to slide. Here again we talked about this situation. We have obstructions in response to Wes's question. We have obstruction. R1 gets second, the base they were sliding into. We don't give them third, right? They hadn't gotten second yet. We don't have to give them third base, giving them second base here. Okay, and this is going to be, that's obstruction, time when the play finishes, and then put them on second base.
Hey,
There
Phil?
used to be an injection for this or a warning.
Warning.
Yeah, that's ejection.
That's warning.
Start with a warning.
Yeah.
Start with a warning. Yeah.
And it's a team warning.
According to the rules, would this be an obstruction if he came in standing up?
Yes. There's no
Okay, 'cause
must
he would
slide.
be
There's no
hindering in
must
that
slide rule.
situation.
There's no must slide rule in Federation.
Yeah, but that's what's causing the change in play. In the sense that if he didn't slide, he was going to go in standing up because there was no throw. It's the fake tag that caused him to slide.
Yeah, but even if he doesn't slide, the fact that there was a fake tag, we have obstruction.
Okay.
Can I ask a follow-up? Is it we have a fake tag with no contact on the runner and the runner does not slide. Are we warning? And then if there's a fake tag, no contact with the runner, but the runner slides because of it, is there a warning? I would assume so.
If you have a fake tag, there should be a warning.
No matter what.
Yep. Whether he induces him to slide or not.
Federation sees this as both a safety and a sportsmanship issue. So you want to address that right away. You don't want that to keep happening on the whole game. One guy does it, the other side's going to do it to the other guy, and then where's it going to end? So get it done, and the first time you see it, get it done. Warn them, let everybody know you're not going to allow that to happen today. It's just a warning, and it's a team warning. So someone from the team does it again, they're ejected.
And Phil,
And it's a good time and Wes, it's a good time to make a big deal out of it too, right? Like not like pageantry, but you need to let the coach know, right? Because he needs to let his whole team know that this has happened. Because if it follows up with then a fake tag at third base on the same runner because you haven't notified people, now by rule we should have ejections and all that stuff. So take a moment, let the coaches know that this has happened, and you also want to let the offensive coach know that the warning was issued, right? Because you don't want him to feel like he needs to puff up his chest and retaliate on behalf of his players. So let everybody know what's happening.
Yeah, and this is whether there's contact or not.
Yes.
And are we speaking up in the sense that we are yelling from second base, just a quick brief, hey coach, that's a obstruction warning, or are we giving them the finger and running over to them and saying, hey, here's what's going on?
I would run over to them. I don't love, I don't love being yelled at across the field, and in return, don't like to yell at people across the field. Alex, I think you had something.
Yeah, I was just going to point out for some of the newer guys, myself included, that when we talk about, NHFS, it's not just high school. A lot of the youth organizations have adopted the same rule set. So if you're doing travel ball and perfect game and stuff like that, they're using the same rule set. And that's where I see this more often than not because the kids are younger and don't know any better. So that's where you want to take this out of the game so that by the time they get to high school, they're not pulling this stuff anymore.
Hey, Phil?
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, how would you verbalize it? Would you call that obstruction when you see it, even though it's a delayed dead ball?
Yes. Always gonna point and say that's obstruction. And again, be judicious on the ones that we would have as type B that we're not going to enforce. Don't call those, don't name those. But in the situations where you have obstruction, name it, and then when the play completes, time, and then restate, then let the come to you, right? Time, that was obstruction, you second base, right? Make your awards.
Thank you.
All right, case play 3. Batter hits the ball into the gap. Rounds first, heads to second base. Shortstop blocks the base, and we've got 3 choices here. While the outfielder still has the ball, so they are not in possession of the ball. After the shortstop catches the ball, so they are in possession of the ball. Or the ball is in the air from the outfield, and the shortstop will probably be able to make the play on the batter. So in A, the key here is that the shortstop does not have possession of the ball. That's obstruction. In B, the fielder has the ball, and as we talked about, they can do whatever they want. So here, we do not have obstruction. That's a legal play. And in the final one, again, we don't have possession. And so if F6 blocks the base and denies access to the base without possession of the ball, before the runner gets there, we're going to have obstruction. Same play, just depends where the ball is. Case play 4. Runners advancing to score when the left fielder throws home. Catcher completely blocks home plate. A, while in possession of the ball. B, while juggling and attempting to secure the ball. C, before the ball has reached the catcher. So from what we've talked about clearly, A is legal because they're in possession of the ball. As I mentioned while we were talking about the definitions, attempting to secure the ball means we're not in possession of the ball yet. So we would have obstruction there. And clearly, if the ball hasn't reached F2 yet, they don't have possession. We would have obstruction. And the final case play before we jump to some videos, batter hits a single to center field. Ball's fielded cleanly by the center fielder, throws to second base. The batter, while rounding first base with no intent to advance, makes contact with the first baseman, loses his balance, but returns safely to first base. The contact doesn't keep him from reaching second. And so, as I've covered from a scenario perspective, in Federation baseball, we can point at that and say, that's nothing, so that it lets everybody know, I saw that there was contact, but I don't have obstruction because he wasn't hindered, he wasn't kept from going to second base, he wasn't going there anyway. If you do call it obstruction, by rule, you have to award second base. And in OBR, this would be type 2 obstruction. We would call the obstruction because he was impeded, but we would keep the runner at first base. Any questions about these case plays? Okay, I'm going to switch to some videos. Everybody see the screen that has videos on it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll watch this first one through. It's just a little video of what obstruction looks like. We have a rundown situation here, and as this first throw happens, the runner turns, it's going to head back to first base, and we're going to have contact with the first baseman. Everybody have obstruction there?
Yes.
Clearly, right? So in OBR, this would be type A obstruction. Rundowns always type A. A play is being made on the obstructed runner here. This would be an immediate dead ball, and this runner would be awarded second base. In Federation baseball, it's still obstruction. He was hindered from getting back to first base. We're going to let this play finish, and then once the play is over, time, that was obstruction, you second base. The result is the same. The enforcement's a little different.
Hey Phil, you're still calling obstruction at that point, but you're not calling time, right? For Federation.
That's
So you're saying
exactly
that's
right, Doug.
obstruction. Yeah.
Exactly right. We're still stating that's obstruction at the same time. One is followed immediately by time. The other one, we let the circus finish.
Bill, if the circus finishes and the guy actually gets to second, you're surely not giving him third, right? I mean, on that,
Right.
let's say they throw it away, whatever, and he's,
The
gets to
mandatory
second on
award
his
is,
own.
that's right, Jeff. The mandatory award is one base from where he was when he was obstructed, not from where he ends up. So where he was obstructed here is between first and second. We have to give him second. If we think he would have gotten more, We could. So let's say in this rundown scenario, the second baseman overthrows the first baseman and the ball goes in the dugout. The mandatory award is second, but the dead ball award is third. We're going to put him on third.
So if they tag him out going back to first, it's obviously not going to be an out. It's going to be you're going to call a dead ball. Yeah, play over after that and say we have obstruction. It's going to second.
Exactly.
No,
Right.
or coming. Or yeah, in that case, yeah, if he was tagged out, he'd be awarded second.
That's right.
Okay.
Phil, if this started off as a first and third situation and you had the rundown between first and second and then had obstruction and it's OBR, what happens to that runner on third when you kill it?
Yeah, so if he was going to score, then you score him. If not, put him back at third base. Your judgment. What would nullify the act of obstruction?
The rule says where you place the runner where you felt he would have had when would have attained the obstruction not occurred, right? So he would have.
Yep, nullify the act of obstruction for the other runners.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. On this play, the question is, does the first baseman obstruct the runner? So we have a ball that's hit to the outfield. First baseman's coming in, taking up space. And as the batter runner rounds first, we have obstruction there?
I would say so.
Yep. Yes.
Looks a lot like obstruction to me.
Yep.
No play being made on the obstructed runner.
Yep.
In both rule sets, this is a delayed dead ball. Okay, we verbalize that's obstruction. When the play completes, time, that was obstruction. You, second base. Handled the same way in both rule sets.
Are we pointing with the left hand there to like we would you go
Yes.
down to your partner to first base? Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Thanks.
We'll start this one again. Is this obstruction on the pitcher? So we have a ground ball hit down the first base line. We've got two fielders who could potentially field it. We have a pitcher who overruns the ball, runs into the baseline, makes contact with the batter runner going to first base. What do we think? Do we have obstruction on this play?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yes.
No. Why not?
I don't think so because if there's a runner's lane, he's well within the infield side of that runner's lane.
Oh, good point on the runner's lane here. So the runner's lane
Might
only
not be a lane,
exists
but
for the purposes of that rule only exists for when there's a ball being thrown to first base. And so in this case, we would ignore that the runner's lane exists at all. It has no bearing on this play. Where the batter runner is running is really immaterial until there's an attempt of a tag on him. Then he's got 3 feet in either
okay.
direction to the base.
Okay.
That's his base path. So yeah, the runner's lane does not apply here. What we need to decide as umpires is we've got two fielders who could field the ball. We can only give protection to one of them from an interference perspective. So if the batter runner is going to potentially collide with one or both of these fielders, we've got to figure out which one do we think is most likely to field this ball. And on a ground ball, it's a little easier. On a pop-up, that can be a little more difficult. But here, I think it's pretty clear, I hope it's pretty clear to everybody, that the first baseman is the one who's fielding this ball. We all agree with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the pitcher is not the one we're protecting. So when the pitcher gets in the way of the runner, we have obstruction.
Yep.
All right.
In OBR, this would be type A obstruction. It's obstruction on the batter runner before they reach first base. So this is an immediate dead ball. Batter runner gets first. Other runners nullify active obstruction. In Federation baseball, again, the only type we have is a delayed dead ball. In this case, nobody else is covering first. He's going to touch first and everything's good. But if he got knocked down by that pitcher and the first baseman went over to tag him, we'd call time. We'd award him first base. Okay, this is obstruction. Three-way collision. I think, Cappy, this one might get to your question. So we've got a similar situation here. This time the pitcher is the one who fields it. We've got a first baseman who is perilously close to that runner's base path headed to first base. And now we have a tag attempt. A lot of stuff happening at the same time here. Who's got obstruction?
First baseman.
I've got obstruction on the first baseman, right? So the first baseman is not the fielder who's protected here. The pitcher has not tagged him before that obstruction occurs. Had the pitcher tagged him before the obstruction, we'd just have an out, right? Because once he's out, then he can't be obstructed. So a lot of things are happening kind of close from a timing perspective here. But the key here is, who are we protecting and who are we not protecting?
Yeah, Phil, even though the pitcher tags him, if he had to slow down or alter his running, wouldn't you consider that obstruction? Because
You could,
even though
Jeff.
he's not, quote,
I'd be careful.
hindered, he changed the pattern.
Yeah, I'd be careful on this one because the pitcher is so close that the runner could be avoiding the pitcher, right? Which he has to do by rule, right? He can't interfere with the pitcher fielding the ball. And these fielders are so close together that it would be hard. It could be hard for you to say that he was trying to run around the first baseman who was obstructing him versus running away from the fielder who was making the play and running away from him. So,
right. But if you could see that he did fairly obviously,
yes, you would not have to have contact if he changes
then
his.
you could grab the obstruction there.
Certainly
rather
could.
than the out.
Certainly could.
Even though we like to grab outs if we can.
Gary was on here, he would totally agree with you.
Hey, Phil.
Yeah.
You also got to tell them too that these runners, they create the obstruction. They have runners that will run around and try to hit it infield to get an extra base. So that's something you're
Cooch,
be aware of.
I'm going to close with a video that's exactly that.
Phil, do you have anything in that same scenario? Are you getting to a video where there was a pop-up in that area in the same scenario? If not, I'd like to just speak on that real quickly.
I believe we do. Hold on a second. It's not this one. It's not this one. Maybe not. Yeah.
So do you mind?
Yeah.
So in that scenario, just like this, say it's a pop-up and the pitcher's going over to make the catch. And in the meantime, before that catch happens, the first baseman veers off and runs into the runner. As long as that pitcher completes that catch, that if the pitcher completes that catch, that obstruction is gonna be ignored, even if it happens prior to the catch, because the catch is gonna take precedent, because it didn't have an effect on that. It didn't hinder him for first base because he's out on the catch. Okay, so you're not going to take away that out and give the runner first base in that situation. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Thanks, Rick. Let's watch another play here. We have a second baseman who doesn't field a routine ground ball. The ball is about that far away from him. And now we have a collision. What do we got?
Interference.
Obstruction. It has to be within arm's length.
Type A obstruction.
So this is about as close as it gets, right? And I think we could all watch this and we might be split 40-30 on whether this was interference or obstruction.
Obstruction.
And
it's
so,
not the first play being made, so it's not interference by my book.
Well,
it's
the act of the interpretation here, Alex. It's a great point. The interpretation here is act of fielding the ball, right? And so you have to say, is this fielder still in the act of fielding the ball? And the interpretation is that if they're within a reach of the ball, they are still in the act of fielding it. And so, in your judgment, as this ball squirts away from him, is that a reach away?
No,
Not to me.
If
not
it's
in my
not for
opinion.
you, if it's not for you, then you have obstruction.
Yes,
If
sir.
it is for you, you have interference. You have to have one of them here. This is something. You can't point at this and go, that's nothing. Okay. You have to make a decision. Is it within an arm's reach and he's still fielding the batted ball? If so, then the runner has interfered with him. If it's not within the arm's reach, then you have obstruction because you have a fielder who's not in possession of the ball who has hindered the runner. Okay. So I don't want to debate it because, again, we could be split about down the middle here about who's got interference and obstruction. The point is, this is as close as it gets, and our judgment can be different when we watch the same play, but you got to call something here.
Obstruction.
I'll tell you, if we put it up on a poll, I think it would be split.
I
Yeah,
agree.
what was
I
the
agree
call?
with George.
Yeah, what was the call on the field? Just out of curiosity.
Well, let's see what we got. So our umpire there is pointing at the runner, and he's going to call him out for interference.
Yeah.
Because in this one talks about the fielder's immediate reach. And that doesn't mean that he was right. It means that in his judgment, and that, you know what that means? That means he's right. Because in his judgment, it was within a reach.
You got
Yeah,
an out.
because
That's
it
good.
did look like the fielder could simply bend down and pick that ball up, albeit with his
And it's
glove.
awkward
But
because he's got to change direction, so it looks further than it
yeah,
is. And
yeah, it
you
looks
know,
worse
and
than
in
it
game
is. Yep,
speed, it probably looks different too. And so again,
yep.
the only way that you screw that play up is if you just look at it and freeze and go, "Oh boy, what am I going to do?" Right? Pick one, and you're fine.
Doesn't the runner have to run around all that?
On that initial action, yes, the runner has to avoid the fielder. But when the fielder doesn't field the ball cleanly, if it gets further away than a reach, now the fielder's no longer in the act of fielding the batted ball. They're in the act of fielding the ball that they made an error on. And so now the fielder, you could see a scenario where the runner is attempting to go behind the fielder. The ball gets behind him, and now he takes off for the ball and collides with the runner. The runner did everything they were supposed to do to try to go around him. And because the fielder made a mistake, now we're going to penalize the runner. It's really not in keeping with fairness.
Okay.
All right, obstruction. If you don't have the ball, get out of the way. So this will be another rundown situation between home and third. Catcher's going to throw to the third baseman. Third baseman's going to chase the runner coming in from third. And at this moment, there is no contact, but we can see that the runner has changed their direction toward home plate, right? They've moved to go around the catcher. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
At that moment, we had obstruction. So we'll have a plate umpire who points at that obstruction and is going to award home. Okay, so in Federation baseball, this would be a delayed dead ball. We'd let the play finish. We're going to award home. In OBR, we would have type A obstruction here. Rundowns are always type A obstruction. There's a play being made on this runner, and we would award home. Okay, and he points back at where it happened, says that was obstruction, you're scoring. And the catcher says, what did I do?
Hey, Phil.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
In OBR, that's you call time first, right?
Yes,
Neither of these umpires called time.
correct.
You got the play right.
That's why they get the big
Joe
bucks.
West. That's Joe West. Phil, can you I know we talked about OBR and where the runners would be placed had the obstruction not occurred. Because the ball is staying live in Federation, correct me if I'm wrong, Phil. Not perfect on all this stuff, as you know. It that the but they when you when you do eventually call time, a runner has to have acquired that base to stay at that base, otherwise they go back, correct? Or no? Or is
Yeah,
it still judgment what they would have acquired?
still judgment, nullifying the act of obstruction.
Okay. Even in Federation?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, we're going to let the play finish, right? So
Right.
in that
So
case, we don't have that, right? So the play is going to finish. I'm not killing it like when that play is being made on the runner between first and second. Play is completely relaxed. Now I'm calling time.
yeah, that's right. That makes sense because all other runners have to come to the completion also in order for the play to be completed.
Right.
So they're going to all make it to the next base. Okay. Yep. That makes sense. That's okay.
Or they're going to get thrown out, but yeah.
Right. That makes sense. Yep. Perfect.
Yep.
Phil, can I ask
okay.
you one more question?
Sure.
Only because this did come up for me last year. We're in the, letting the play finish. I signaled that I had the obstruction, and then everybody froze. And they stopped chasing the runner stopped running. And so I eventually did just call time because I'm not going to let them stand there all day. But you tell them you got to go back on go to first base so I can call time or something. What do you do there?
If everybody had stopped, sounds like the play was finished.
Okay, but you don't have to wait until they get to one base or the other.
Yeah, I mean, play should be done, right? So ideally, everybody finds a home and we go from there. But that's not always going to happen because you're right. When you say that's obstruction, especially at youth levels, kids just stop and go, "What is happening?" Right? So, yeah, just do the best you can there. Use your best judgment. Um, as we get to upper levels, kids know that they need to finish the play. All right, and the last one is for Cooch. So this will be a ball hit to the second baseman.
They're on the ground to second.
Throw comes home, and we've got R3. We started with runners on first and third, so we've got the runner on third and a rundown. Throw goes back to the third baseman. Cooch, guess what he's going to do?
I know what he's going to do.
He's going after him.
I see that a lot in high school.
So we have contact there, right?
Yep.
And he gets thrown out, and he's pointing back. He's calling the obstruction himself. What do we have there?
Ejection.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Cooch. So I'll tell you how I would rule on this. I would point at this and say that's nothing. Okay, because I don't have obstruction. I don't have obstruction on this because the runner went out of his way to make contact with the fielder. He did not go out of his way and maliciously make contact with the fielder. It was certainly intentional, but intentional and malicious are not the same thing. And so, if he'd gone and lit him up, right, if there was malicious contact, then yes, could have an ejection there, would agree with Cooch. But here, just the intent of going to try to draw the contact and to get the call, is that a shitty thing to do? Yes. Is that ejectable? Not to me, but it's also, I'm not giving him home on that. Okay. This is different than the rundown that we saw earlier where the runner changes direction and in his natural going back and forth between bases, he has to avoid the catcher. This runner goes out of their way to make the contact happen. And if that's what you judge, then you should not reward him by automatically giving him home in that situation. Okay. And this is going to be your judgment. I can tell you, I don't have all the angles of this play, but from the field view, from the base umpire's view and the plate umpire's view, this isn't an easy one to get. From the high home that we're seeing here, it's a lot easier. You can see him clearly change direction and go after the fielder. And from this, it's an easy call. But this isn't the angle we have in a real game. Okay, so you may not be able to pick this up, but if you do see it, and there have been several examples of this in Major League Baseball over the past few years, where guys in rundowns will intentionally go after one of the fielders who's in the rundown, who doesn't have the ball, obviously, so that they are impeded or hindered and can't advance to the base they're going to, hoping that they'll get out of the rundown by getting the next base. So just be aware that that's a thing that happens. And I'm glad Cooch brought it up earlier and glad I had a video to show of it. But
Can you play that one more time?
yeah. So for those of you
Awesome.
who want to see it one more time, we've got the throw coming in, goes to third, and There he goes after him. One
Yeah, I
more
mean,
time.
to me, the bottom line is the definition of obstruction, where the first couple of words there is the act of the fielder. In this case, this wasn't the act of the fielder. The catcher did everything he was supposed to do and got out of the way. This was the act of the runner. So I don't have obstruction here. But you're right about the angles. Like, who knows what you can see from the foul line?
Yeah, could certainly see
I'm
it.
just watching, wondering why they didn't tag the guy standing off third base before they went after the guy going home.
That's what I thought.
Well, he's the more valuable chess piece, right? He's the one trying to score.
To be
Yes.
out for going out of the baseline.
I think I can get
couldn't you
two
call
with that.
for going out of the baseline?
Well, when there's a tag being attempted on him, yes, but when he's got 3 feet, right? So
Right.
think about where he is now. Nobody's trying to tag him right now.
Yeah.
The guy who's got the ball is 15 feet away from him, not making a tag attempt. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So out of the baseline doesn't apply right now. And even then, he doesn't go more than 3 feet.
No.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Can you put it back at 9 seconds?
Can try.
Right when the third base coach points
Third base
to
umpire.
right there. Go back just a little bit. Yep, and then right there. The coach is out of the coach's box, not directly in the eyes of the umpire, although I have been in a 3-man crew, and the coach several times, especially on pickoffs at third, has been blocking my view, and I've tried adjusting my position and just consistently out of the coach's box, shielding my view. If the home plate umpire, if we come together after this play and ask me what I saw, and I said, I don't know, I was blocked by the coach, do we have interference on the coach?
No. The coach, interfering with your ability to see a play is not interference. The only time we would have interference on a coach is when they make contact with a player who's attempting to advance or return, right? Then we would have coach's interference. But them being out of the coach's box is not going to be grounds for interference.
Okay.
All right. That was everything I had for obstruction in our case plays. I hope that those in the videos, I hope those were helpful, but happy to entertain any other questions folks may have about obstruction or any of the things we talked about tonight.
Hey, Phil, just one comment, maybe notwithstanding the last video that you showed. In all of the obstruction scenarios that Phil showed, there is always the possibility that the runner decides to take matters into their own hands and trucks the fielder that's in his way. Remember that malicious contact will always supersede the obstruction. So you won't see it often, but I can't say that you'll never see it.
Yep, agreed, Dave. Thanks. Anything else, folks?
Phil, I agree with the interpretation that the fielder has the right to bobble a ball and field it within arm's length. The problem is as far as I know, there's no language in the rule book that says that in Federation. Federation doesn't help us a lot, and a smart coach may pick up on that. Because what the rule book says is he has to avoid a fielder in the immediate act of making a play. So the immediate act of making a play, the word immediate is the tricky one. So if the fielder bobbles the ball and it's within arm's length, we've interpreted that to be the immediate act.
Correct.
So I would be careful when you explain to a coach that you want to use that language. They may not pick up on it. And I think in college and the pros, it's kind of that language has snuck in. Well, it's within arm's length, but again, you kind of want to, and again, I wish Federation would put that language in, but it doesn't.
Yep, I agree with you, Terry. The explanation there, if you go with interference on that play, should be the fielder was in the act of fielding.
Yeah. And that immediate act is in the eye of the beholder, because immediate, what does that mean? It's kind of up to us.
Right. We'll have the case with the return to the double first base next year, where a batter runner who overruns first base is required to immediately return to first base. And again, what does immediately mean? Do they lollygag a little bit? They stop and take off their Terminator level protection that they wear now on the arm guard, and they're not on the base when they take that off. Are they in jeopardy of being put out because they didn't immediately return to the base? I would argue no, that's still immediate. But yeah, immediate is a little bit in the eye of the beholder. Great points. Any others, folks? All right, well, next week we will do something strikingly similar with the equally exciting topic of interference. Hope some of you can make it.
Yeah, I hope to see y'all. Thanks for coming. I've had a few guys